So what happens when the security walls actually fail and the data gets out? Well, it turns out that's where the real mystery begins. And honestly, it's also where an incredibly lucrative market gap lies. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to unpack a really brilliant startup pitch from a company called VeilHound. They're exposing a massive, fundamental blind spot in the multi-billion-dollar cybersecurity industry, and we're going to walk through their compelling investment case to actually solve it. Okay, let's just quickly run through today's agenda. First, we'll look at the cybersecurity blind spot. Second, the VeilHound Solution. Third, their deep technical moat. Fourth, a $14.6 billion market opportunity. And finally, number 5, the pre-seed ask. All right, section 1, the cybersecurity blind spot, where traditional perimeter defenses fail. We're starting right at the edge of the network perimeter to expose a really critical and frankly expensive flaw in how we currently defend data. 327. That is the average number of days it takes for an organization to simply realize they've been breached. Just think about that for a second. It's kind of crazy, right? You have intruders literally roaming around a network for nearly a year, accessing files, mapping the architecture, basically drinking your metaphorical coffee in the break room. And yet, during that entire 327-day window, absolutely $0 are spent finding out who actually committed the crime. Which really forces us to ask a rather uncomfortable question. What happens to your data once it actually leaves your network? Imagine traditional cybersecurity is like a set of highly advanced, super expensive security cameras inside a bank vault, right? They can see everything happening inside, but the moment the thief steps outside those front doors, those cameras are entirely useless. The thieves take the money, they step onto the sidewalk, and they just vanish into thin air. And that perfectly illustrates the first major consequence of our bank camera analogy: absolute blindness. Once the data is successfully exfiltrated by a bad actor, defenders have zero insight. The incident investigation essentially hits a brick wall the very moment it reaches the perimeter log. The data is gone and the trail goes entirely cold. Now, without that post-breach visibility, we inherently lose attribution. Sure, forensic teams might be able to tell you how the attackers got in, but the investigation abruptly stops at the firewall. From a business and an investment standpoint, this is a terrible position to be in, because you don't know who has the data or where it went, you can't prosecute them, you can't retaliate, and you're flying completely blind when trying to accurately report the incident to regulators. Ultimately, this complete lack of visibility and attribution leads to, well, zero deterrence. This absolute lack of accountability is exactly what emboldens advanced persistent threat groups, or APTs. Nation-state actors and organized crime rings just keep attacking corporate networks at record levels, simply because they know they face absolutely no risk of identification once they escape. They're operating with total impunity. Moving to Section 2, the VeilHound Solution, passive hackback technology. Let's see how VeilHound is completely shifting the paradigm here. So, instead of just building taller walls around the network, VeilHound is basically slipping a GPS tracker right inside the money bags. It's a very simple, logical process: embed, fire, and attribute. They inject invisible beacons directly into the data itself. Then, when the attacker eventually opens those stolen files on their own machine, the payload fires a covert callback, capturing details about the attacker's environment. Finally, an AI-powered Bayesian engine, which is essentially a super complex probability model, processes that signal to generate a really confident, accurate attacker profile. But what's truly unique here is the sheer variety of assets VeilHound can invisibly poison. We're not just talking about your basic PDF or Word documents. They can embed tracking vectors into developer access tools like SSH keys, APIs, cloud access roles, Kubernetes container secrets, and even proactive canaries hidden right inside AI training data. In short, if an attacker wants to steal it, VeilHound can passively track it. All right, Section 3, the deep technical moat, a peer-reviewed foundation. Now, smart investors are probably wondering right now, is this just vaporware? Let's look at the science. VeilHound isn't just some clever idea pitched on a napkin. It's a rock-solid intellectual property moat built entirely upon 5 published, peer-reviewed academic papers. We're talking about formal mathematical proofs and validated effectiveness metrics here. It covers everything from their foundational passive hackback framework all the way to complex cross-campaign tracking. For an investor, this is absolutely vital. It means the core tech is heavily de-risked and properly protected. And get this, look at the actual results of that academic rigor. These AI-enhanced vectors don't just work a little bit better than standard traps, they achieve a staggering 563% improvement in their composite effectiveness score. It's a total transformation in stealth and attribution fidelity. They've essentially built a tracker that is virtually undetectable and highly, highly reliable. So when you compare VeilHound directly to legacy cyber deception players like Thinkst or Ativo, a really stark contrast emerges. Yes, traditional tools work beautifully inside the network to catch intruders, but the comparison stops there. VeilHound keeps going. By tracking beyond the firewall and using things like LLM training canaries, they are quite literally operating in a category of one. Section 4, a $14.6 billion market opportunity, owning the unserved gap. Let's talk numbers and see how big the business case actually is here. Here is the core financial reveal. The total addressable market is $14.6 billion. But you know what makes this uniquely compelling from an investment standpoint? There are absolutely zero funded competitors currently operating in this post-exfiltration space. Because all the legacy players stop at the perimeter, the first mover window for VeilHound is wide open to capture this massive market. And if we zoom in specifically on the rapidly expanding cyber deception submarket, that alone is projected to hit $5.1 billion by the year 2033. It's expanding at a really impressive 18.2% compound annual growth rate. And a lot of this growth is actually being fueled by government regulators, who are increasingly demanding that corporations provide proper, accurate breach attribution when data gets stolen. To capture all of this, VeilHound has a laser-focused go-to-market strategy. They're starting by leveraging their intelligence network to secure high-value defense pilots in year one. We're talking annual contract values up to $1 million because defense agencies are absolutely desperate for this kind of attribution. Then, they plan to scale into a self-serve enterprise software platform in year 2. And finally, by year 3, they'll license their unique AI tech to tackle entirely new legal and IP markets. And that brings us to Section 5, the pre-seed ask, funding the next milestone. Let's look at the strategic investment opportunity itself. They are raising exactly what they need to hit their next major milestone, which is a paid government pilot within 9 months. The $500K ask is logically distributed here, securing top-tier offensive security talent for a technical co-founder, hardening their beacon infrastructure, executing the legal operations for that government pilot, and locking down their intellectual property filings to defend that impressive moat. We don't stop at the perimeter, we follow the data. This tagline perfectly encapsulates everything we've just talked about. It fundamentally redefines the rules of cyber defense. It shifts the entire paradigm from a passive shield hoping to keep people out to a relentless hound that tracks them down wherever they go. So, to wrap up our explainer today, considering the zero-competitor landscape and a totally unserved $14.6 billion market gap, is this the $500K pre-seed opportunity that will permanently disrupt how we attribute and prosecute cybercrime? I mean, given their 563% technical improvement and that peer-reviewed IP moat we saw, it's definitely a fascinating question and one well worth pondering.